So for those who were not able to make it, we actually did host a full day focusing on National Service Criminal History checks last week. And so if you are interested, this is really more so for our newer programs, but obviously everyone will have access. That recording will be available on Basecamp. Candace actually just told me this, and I've already forgotten. Is on Basecamp, Candace, or will be on Basecamp? I forget.
So we actually they were too large to. I've sent this out to everybody, but they were actually too large to post on Basecamp. So we have YouTube links that I'll put the links in the chat.
Perfect. Thanks, Candace. So like I said, that recording will be available, and we'll also include a note about that in the upcoming newsletter as well, which goes out on Monday. So before we jump into the recent updates from the National Service Criminal History check folks, I am hoping that everyone can opt in to putting it into the chat, and maybe some people coming on camera and coming off of mute to basically share your favorite thing, aka challenge, when it comes to National Service Criminal History checks. So we'll take the next 2-3 minutes. Maybe we can get like 2 folks to pop in and share their biggest woes when it comes to NSCHC. We know that they are there. We know that they exist. Maybe a new program can opt in a veteran program.
For us specifically, we're a very rural area, and getting people to fingerprints, it literally is anywhere from 30 to even 100 miles, depending on the individual and where location they can get an appointment at. And it's a detriment because not everyone has access to transportation. We don't have any public transportation here in our area or in the surrounding counties. So that's our number one favorite thing. And the second one would just be the timeline. When you're dealing with a younger demographic and they want to make plans and they got things to do and they want things to kind of move at a certain pace, if it takes, a month to do it, they'll find another thing to do. They'll find something else to occupy them. They'll get another opportunity. And don't get me wrong, in some instances that's vetting the individual, but for others it's a detriment because they might need to, they might have limited engagement opportunity.
Thanks, Ashley. I recall last year on the AmeriCorps call, there was a rural segment and they discussed this heavily, like with the distance when it comes to like being able to appropriately like find spots. There is a resource. I'm going to look for that. It's been some time.
We were told we could be a fingerprint site. However, my organization doesn't want to do that because they don't have the capacity to let just anybody come and do their fingerprinting. They would have to, allocate somebody as a staff person to do that, and they just don't have that capacity. And I don't have the capacity to do that either. So that was, I tried to sell it to them just because of the convenience of it, but it was just not something they could move forward with.
Yeah. Thanks, Ashley. Before we move on, and I did see, Inten, that you had your hand up, but has anyone met this challenge or anyone facing this challenge as well when it comes to distance? Potentially, like you've got sites in more rural areas.
This is Jason. We typically don't directly run into it, but I know the state of Alaska, I've seen a lot of stuff on the state of Alaska and just like incredibly limited fingerprinting opportunities up there. I don't know how they do that, but I know that I've seen that spotlighted and highlighted. So there might be some unique solutions that they were able to identify.
Thanks, Jason. I am recalling that as well. It's pinging my brain. Anyone else want to pop in with, yes, I too am experiencing this issue, or I have attempted to work out this issue when it comes to distance. Okay. Actually, what I will definitely do is look into the fabulous recommendation that Jason just brought up, Alaska. And then I do believe there was a resource that was put together last year. So I'm going to look for that as well. That
I
is,
I was gonna add to that real quick, Ashley. I don't know, like we work across the state, so we've had problems in West Tennessee with this issue. One thing that's unfortunate is that the Field Print website, when you're like researching locations, will tell you, oh, there's all these places around, but they're all like police stations. And you think you're scheduling, it'll say like, hey, you're scheduled an appointment, and you do that, and then when the member shows up, they're like, we don't do that, get out of here. You know what I mean? And so what I actually ended up doing in West Tennessee, because there was pretty much nothing in the immediate area, I ended up going through the list of all the police stations it had listed and calling each police station, and just had to figure out which one of those police stations would actually do it. That's the only way I've been able to work around it in a rural area, is essentially call the police stations and say, this is a situation. These are the people. Will you do this for them? Will you do the ink and roll? Because yeah, it's unfortunate that Field Print lists all these police and court and legal locations, and they don't know that they're I don't think those places know that they're being listed for that purpose. But yeah, the only way I've been able to work around that is to just call the police stations and ask them if they'll do it myself, because the members, it's too confusing for them to figure all that out, so I just do it for them. But yeah.
Our well, we're on a mountain in rural Appalachia, and if you look on, it's weird. Even if we put in the same zip code, everyone gets a different listing of who the closest one to them is. So I've had people drive to Trenton, Georgia, to Nashville, to just wherever, because they're like, oh, it only shows that this was available to me. And I'm like, that's not true. So I usually have to tell them, put in a few different zip codes to find the one closest, because I know there's a few more closer than that. And our one, if you look, it says there's one like right down the road at our police station, but they only do the ink fingerprinting, and you have to order the cards to your organization, then give them out, and then send them there. And then they basically said they can't guarantee anything less than 6 weeks when I called them. And that's just, again, goes to the timeline of,
Yeah. The ink and roll sucks. The ink and roll is not good. Yeah.
And then my other option, the next closest to us, is a gun shop. And some of my members don't feel comfortable, especially if they're 18 and they've never been in a gun shop before, or they have an aversion to weapons. So I'm like, just to let you know. So I tell them, I say, hey, go to Chattanooga, make a day of it, go out to eat, go shopping, get your fingerprints done. Because it's at the UPS store at that point.
Yeah. That's a good way to sandwich it, Ashley. That is just a challenge that it sounds like we're just going to have to take more time on, and may, unfortunately, as we know, when it comes to NSCHC, may not have an immediate solution.
Well, I'm very curious, why can't we use our organizations? I mean, they're vetting people to work at a university with minors and young adults. So, I mean, they're doing their due diligence when they're hiring individuals. So I guess
that's a good question.
I just don't quite understand why the organizations themselves can't hold that responsibility.
Yeah, that is a good question, and one that I don't think we can answer based off of AmeriCorps' policy and deciding factors. It must be within TrueScreen. There are some recent changes that we're going to talk about now that I don't think will address the concern here, Ashley, but potentially. Any other and not to completely leave this in the dust, Ashley, this is something that we're going to have to come back to for sure.
Hey, this is Jason. I'll just throw out there, I think the reason it's like this is because a few years back, they changed to TrueScreen and Field Print, which actually created a lot more accountability across the system, because before it was really left up like, this is the standard. But like, I know CAC was having to go to California and Louisiana, and like some states were just like, we're not giving you the results of background checks. And like, or you get letters that were like, it's illegal to have this, right? So like, I think through imposing like a standard system, they tried to create something that was more streamlined. And so when it works, I would say it is a significant improvement from that system. But when it doesn't work, well, here you are, right? Yeah.
Exactly. This is why it's amazing to have veterans on the call. Thank you, Jason, for the historical knowledge. That makes sense. Though, obviously, with TrueScreen, Field Print has come another set of issues, as things tend to do. I don't want to, so we're at 10:27 again. We're going to close up shop around 10:40, which is really coming quickly. Intan, did you want to quickly share your challenge?
I mean, I think the challenge is just making sure we're doing everything right. And so I feel like there's always something every year that we miss, one little thing. So I will say the trainings, especially the one that I went to last week, was really helpful. But I think, yeah, just kind of staying on top, especially if there might be shifts in staff and stuff. Just really trying to stay on top of all the little changes to make sure we're within compliance with everything.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Intan. I think that is a great transition. I was going to reference something I think all of us should be aware of, maybe not new programs. If we are not utilizing the resources that AmeriCorps has, there is a general, I forget what they call it, like a upcoming training. So anyways, they're called general office hours, and they have them Wednesdays and Thursdays. The next ones that are coming up, actually, they don't have the dates right now listed, but they did have two last week, and the recordings are online. I'm going to throw this link in the chat again, something that I hope most of us are familiar with. But like Anton said, especially when you're talking about bringing on new staff, it is so important for them to get updated like ASAP, because we know that compliance associated findings can definitely have some significant costs associated with any findings related to NSCHC, which is just extremely unfortunate, but the nature of the game. Any updates? Yes. So, updates on the outages in California and Delaware. So we haven't received a formal update. However, based off of just working with you all, the programs here have shared with us that, now they're not seeing, or now they are seeing California and Delaware. And that's been like the last, I think like really the last month that those states have popped up. Those who are in the day-to-day with National Service criminal history checks, if someone could give an update on their experience. Crystal at Relay just asks any updates on true screen outages in California and Delaware. And again, my understanding was that all is well there. Okay. And no pressure to jump in. Do we have a new program that wants to maybe quickly, like 2 minutes or less, share a challenge that they're experiencing in their first go round? Okay, that's exciting. I'm assuming that means that there are not some serious challenges happening. That is always amazing because
One thing I would say is sometimes it's challenging for new programs to like distill all the information that comes their way. I remember doing a site visit with the program a couple years back, and they seemed very capable. They had a experienced person who was an alum trying to stand up their program, and then next thing I know, they had so much disallowance associated with criminal history check things because I think something shifted during like when they started and they had a training and they just weren't, but they ceased to exist within like a year. And it was really a shame. And I think, I don't know what the solution is to that, but I think it has something to do with like a lot of onboarding is like these, right? Like you have a thing and it's like criminal history check, blah, 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 blah. Here are the agreements. Here are the rules. And it does, like I remember when I first started this job, I felt constantly like there was some kind of thing that I was missing and that some foot would come down and I would fundamentally ruin everything, essentially. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful, Jason. I think what we can do in this instance, obviously, is to communicate clearly as much as possible and really develop a consistent checklist that's updated as much as possible. The updates be happening like all the time. A recent update happened as of June 30th. And so it's up to us to support you all in this, especially our newer programs, because exactly what Jason just said, like it feels like you might have a handle on it, but there are so many ins and outs when it comes to the National Service Criminal History Check process. I'm going to go ahead and transition over to this update. Again, this is the most recent update, and it's supposed to take effect sometime in August. We know we have to remain flexible when it comes to the changes around AmeriCorps, because it could be sometime in September. But as of now, they've identified August as the time where that vendor transition will happen. So TrueScreen right now, AmeriCorps has awarded a contract to TrueScreen to provide for all three check components through one system. So TrueScreen is actually working with a sister company, FieldPrint, which I think many of us are familiar with, to incorporate the FBI check into the existing TrueScreen platform. And to conduct FBI checks. I'm throwing in a link that will be very helpful to review if you haven't already. This answers all of the questions that folks have been asking throughout the last couple of months, that AmeriCorps has compiled and put together, asking about how can learn more about this change is a big question there. Who will be the AmeriCorps approved vendor for National Service Criminal checks, and what does this change entail? And I'm going to read off this directly. So TrueScreen will be the approved vendor for AmeriCorps grantees to conduct National Service Criminal History checks. You'll be able to order all three components. So that's the NSOWP, state, and FBI checks. And all of this will happen within the TrueScreen system. You'll also be able to review the results there and adjudicate all three check components in TrueScreen. Apologies, there's a train currently riding through my apartment, so hopefully that's not too loud on y'all's end. But TrueScreen is updating its current system to add this FBI component. FieldPrint, through a subcontract with TrueScreen, will continue to provide live scan fingering services for the FBI check. So this is a very important update that I encourage everyone's team to review. You should have at least one person on your staff. And for those of us like University of the South who are fabulously teamed by a wonderful one-person staff, this will have to be you, Ashley, and for those who do have one-person staff, but there should be one person who is an expert in all things NSCHC. So definitely go and review this document. We are going to spend some time looking at this document the next time that we meet, which we haven't decided as yet. So in this last 5 minutes, I'm hoping to just kind of share a couple of different updates outside of the National Service Criminal History Check. Again, to close the loop here, review this document. It's 7 pages, very short. It's very friendly to the eyes for reading. And so I think it's very, for me, it felt like it was very clear. But definitely review this. And again, we will chat more on this change and any changes that happen in the next month at our next Team Tennessee Coffee and Chats, which New Programs is a space that we usually use every other month to just kind of have formal questions to discuss, but also just an informal space to vent, to chat, to talk about successes, talk about resources, all of the vibes. And actually, before I jump in this last 4 minutes to talk about a couple of updates, if folks can throw in any questions that you have for the AmeriCorps specific team, you will get to touch base with Jim later today. But anything that's more on the day-to-day that you have not heard back from us on, if you could throw it into the chat, that would be cool. Anything that you want to touch base on at the next Team Tennessee Coffee and Chats, please also throw that into the chat. Okay, so the 3 updates that I want to share with you all today that is going to impact the day-to-day with how we support you all. One, we have talked about this a couple of times now. The hope is that we're going to move all reporting to a platform. And this actually reminds me, I think it might have been Trina who referenced e-grants. I think it was Trina who referenced e-grants as being like the thing that they hope will change. And not to totally be disjointed in my communication, but that is, as I think many of us have heard on this call, will be sunset. It was supposed to be sunset, I think, already, but it is going to be sunset eventually. And the date that they're looking at now is in October. So we will share updates on what that actually means for Team Tennessee. We are still working that out. Again, we're excited about the egress changes, but also are not exactly hopeful or sure that it will happen in October. So we'll keep you updated there. But the end of egrants is in sight for sure. Going back to how we will take on reports. So as you know, new programs, you don't know this, but how we take on invoices, fiscal reports, and also progress reports has usually been through a workbook, through an Excel spreadsheet. Now we are hoping to officially move to platform status. So the company we've been looking at, the vendor we've been looking at, I think some of all are using AmeriCorps. Amazing platform. I think that we will all really enjoy that transition when that happens. We are currently on Volunteer Tennessee and dealing with programmatic potential challenges and how we'll be able to fund that. So if we will be able to start that up August 1st, I do not think that is likely at this time. However, it is definitely coming down the pike. In the interim, before we do move to AmeriCorps, because it is happening, and we're excited about it. In the interim, I think what we'll do is move over to SurveyMonkey. There will be a full email talking about that process. With that being said, if we still move over to that platform using SurveyMonkey to submit your reports, there will still be the Excel spreadsheet component. So we will have a more full update for you there as soon as possible. But my hope is that moving to an online platform, even if it's not AmeriCorps, will just help us with capacity. And then also help us to just keep track on our end. So organizationally, this will support us, but this will not necessarily give you that great benefit of what AmeriCorps will do. So that's the first thing. Reports will be moved over eventually to AmeriCorps, but in the meantime, potentially SurveyMonkey. And again, you'll get a full email on that. Then the second item that I wanted to touch base on, had to go back to my notes really quick, program TA. So instead of sending emails, and you all have been amazing, seriously, truly thank you for your patience. I am excited to officially welcome the new AmeriCorps program manager when they do come on in the next month. In the meantime, and I actually think just like going forward, because I don't believe AmeriCorps will have this functionality, we'll move TA over to a survey. So any questions that you have related to the day-to-day, member questions, my hope is, again, this will help with the inevitable bottleneck that is me, and that we'll be able to respond to your questions more quickly. And again, it'll be just more organized on our side. So that will be included in the upcoming newsletter, which is going to be shared on Monday. This link, it will basically ask you really simple questions like, well, one, what is your question? And then also asks you to put a priority number on it. I see a question on the side. Will we need to acquire AmeriCorps for this transition? We will get an update to you all as soon as possible. So this will fall most likely on our end. We are going to cover the costs for reporting. We are not, and I really should have started with this. This is reporting only. This is not for member time. You all continue to use the beautiful systems that you're using. And, in the future, we can discuss potentially moving over to a uniform system for all of Team Tennessee. I don't think that would actually work because we do have folks like Teach for America who have their own individual systems. So anyways, but that's a great question, Ashley, and we will get that information to you all as soon as possible. The one thing that is definitely coming down the pike, again, is TA for SurveyMonkey. That will be included in the upcoming newsletter, and potentially we'll send an individual email because it makes sense to do that. All right. And then last but definitely not least, I want to just throw out this quick ping. The in-person retreat that we have at the conference annually. The hope is, for several years, we've had quite an amazing experience, like bringing in like National Service Criminal History Tech folks and different experts within the AmeriCorps arena. We had Michael, the president, CEO of AmeriCorps, join us 2 years ago. That being said, so we want now to take a shift and uh, look into having this program not only for you all, but by you all. And so we're putting together a planning committee. So if you are interested in being a part of that committee to decide what exactly the retreat looks like, who, will be the presenters, the format of the retreat has been typically like more in like a teacher layout uh, format, but maybe we want to do something else, more like involved, bringing in service activities, potentially integrating members into this special day. So anyways, that is the other thing, and we will include that in the newsletter. This has been a amalgamation of lots of different things. Again, any questions that you have, please throw it into the chat. We are going to close up shop now, and you all will get to take your break a little bit earlier. Candace, I'll let you pop back in, and I will see you all very soon. Again, look out for the newsletter on Monday. It will have some very important updates, including how to get in touch with us for questions around day-to-day AmeriCorps member stuff.
Anything lastly for Latifah? She's kind of preempted us to go on break a little early, but does anybody have anything else for Latifah before she hops off?
Real quick, just the limit on the number of AmeriCorps terms that resources can be used to. I know that American Service Commissions has provided some feedback that won't apply until the next not the upcoming program year, but the next one. So it shouldn't matter if you have like people that are 30-year members coming in, that kind of thing. But I haven't seen anything super official from AmeriCorps yet, which would be mildly comforting, I think. I don't know if that's going to be addressed by Jim.
It might be. Could you actually put that question in the chat, Jason, so I can make sure I come back to it?
Yeah, I'll put it in.
Thank you.
Yeah, I second that question. That was the main. That was the main thing I wanted to ask Jim later. So yeah.
Awesome. And Jim probably will be able to answer that. But I think, again, big questions throw into the chat just in case we're not able to get to when Jim gets here. And then we'll make sure, even if Jim is able to get to it, to make sure we include it in the newsletter.
Okay. And Ashley, thank you for your Latifah. You're welcome to follow off. I know you have a scheduled meeting, but
Thanks,
Ashley,
Candace.
to answer your question, you're welcome. Latifah jumped the gun just a tad about the conference. We are actually looking, and we'll talk about this a little later, for our next in-person meeting, which is going to be before the conference, which is I really would love to put us back in person. That's outside of the conference. The conference should be not mandatory for you guys, right? It should be something that you guys should come and learn and be able to network and be with everybody. And we just want to include a little bit more in person. So for the fall, like I said, and we'll come back to this. For the fall, we are looking to have member meetings. That's a tongue twister. Member meetings for our members, so that they are able to come together, and you guys can include it within your and give them options to come to the regional meetings. Everybody won't be able to drive to Nashville. We'll have one meeting in West Tennessee, one in Middle, and then one in East Tennessee. And so when we first sort of brought this up, I had a couple of questions on reimbursements and how the members are going to be able to get there, if we're going to be able to reimburse them for their travel. Of course, we'll take care of their food and their, their basic necessities while they're there, of course. But the biggest question was reimbursements. And so I was able to refigure the budget for you guys so that each individual program is able to invoice me for all of the members that they send for their travel. So instead of me having 300 different people send me reimbursements individually for me to reimburse them. We will reimburse you guys as a program. So to bag it up and to make sure that I'm perfectly clear, we're talking about a couple of different meetings, right? We have our conference meeting, which is in February, which we're not even there yet. We have a members meeting that we're thinking about having in each region of the state. And then we would like to have a program director meeting that's in person, that's just you guys. So I know that Latifah was kind of in a hurry, but we're not going to jump the gun on the conference just yet. We're going to focus on what's happening in the fall for you guys' training, what you would like to see for your members that can complement your recruitment, your retention, your onboarding, your introduction of your program, and we're just going to move from there. I know that was a lot, but do you have any questions about that? Anybody? Do y'all want meetings for your members or in another in-person meeting for a program director? I really want the member meetings to happen. I think that that's important, but I could be in my own head with that. So do you guys have any feedback?
I mean,
Hey, Candace. Oh, go ahead, Jason.
Is that Tanya?
Oh.
I think I hear Tanya.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to say that the last time I presented at the conference, the basis of it was organizing opportunities for directors to get together to kind of discuss directorly things. I think Volunteer Tennessee is really well positioned as like the state level agency to do that, outside of like a whole new entity popping up or something like that, or an individual program kind of carrying that. So the idea of bringing like maybe like regional convenings of directors or bigger convenings of directors, I think is really meaningful, because I feel like that is a missing capacity. Also, I think the member piece and just creating opportunities for members from different programs to come together. I think some communities have abilities to kind of facilitate that to an extent, but a lot don't. And I think that's also a really great idea.
I like it too. I even though I like these virtual meetings, I still think that we need like some in-person energy sharing, So, and while I've been here, not only have I not had the capacity, but I haven't had the money. And then we were still kind of off and on about like what's going on. So these are my goals for this year, to do what I do best, which is come together with you guys and actually facilitate training. So I have Trina, and then I have Tanya. And Tanya, you said something first, but I see you, Trina. I'll get to you next. Tanya, do you mind? Go right ahead.
Yeah, that's fine. I hate that my camera is not working. Yeah, I just was wondering, one, I agree, ditto to everything Jason just said. That's why I was totally fine with you going, because I figured we were on the same page. But I will say, I really think it's super important about these member meetings and them being in person. I also super, if we could get directors together in like regions or have meetings like that, like where we are, is so helpful, because when we're in person, we can brainstorm a lot better and then learn more from each other. And they can, and then because, Tennessee is Tennessee, and all of it, like any state, has its own cultures in different places. And then you start to know your people and you can get to know more of the resources there. But for the members to be able to meet each other, that would be amazing. I know for the way they serve is like they have so many events that they do, as opposed to, like something that's like can like, oh, they go and they do this. Ours, they do like all this facilitation and experiential work with students. And so I think for our group, I would definitely like as much of a heads up so I could block that time off. Like I would. So
I'm thinking, and I got you. I'm gonna respond to Rachel. I'm gonna say this thought, and then we're gonna switch over to Trina. I'm thinking in November is probably a good time, when we normally do like the DEI training.
Yeah.
Around that time. That's the time that I'm thinking about having these. So that way, you guys have missed the brunt of the enrollment period. You kind of have some type of like setness about what it is you're doing, and you still have enough time to implement things throughout your year. And if that time is successful, then I would like to implement that time each year, so that it sort of breaks up the monotony of being virtual all the time. And to respond to your question, Rachel, I so it's just a tough one. Like I want to make it available for everybody without putting it on Saturdays because we have you guys, we have a lot of teacher programs that they just can't make it during the week because they're teaching or they have limited hours. So I'm not sure how to tackle that problem just yet, but and it might be a trial and error, like going through it and actually seeing it in its full existence. But I don't know what a solution to that would be other than to have it on a Saturday, which I'm gonna make it for somebody everywhere. And Judy, that's a great break. That's a great one too during fall break. I don't know if everybody's fall break is the same. Memphis might be different from Knoxville. I just don't know. So let me think about that one, Rachel, and what a possible solution would be. But I honestly just don't know how to make that one work. Trina, I'll get to you next, Ashley, but I want to get to Trina next. If you're talking, Trina, you're muted.
Sorry, very quickly, I just want to say that I am super excited about the fact that the program director retreats will be separate from the conference.
Yes.
So excited about that. I do feel like representation from Team Tennessee as a whole would be more beneficial to us than just having program director regional meetings. I mean, those are important as well. But I think it's important for Team Tennessee as a whole to come together at least one time per year in person with content that is very specific to program and the needs of the programs. It could be facilitated by Volunteer Tennessee staff as well as program directors facilitating some of the content. And I think it's also important, and I don't mean this to come across negatively, but I think it's also very important for all of Team Tennessee to be represented, including all staff from Team Tennessee, because sometimes there are compliance questions that come up. Sometimes there's, these new AmeriCorps rules that have been established. Those things come up, and I think it's important to have the individuals that handle those questions on Team Tennessee staff to be available, face to face with the AmeriCorps programs, in that same space. It's more of a supportive environment when all of us are together at one time. And like I said, the content is built around what we programs are really facing on a day-to-day basis.
I agree, because y'all don't think bad about me. Y'all know I love the conference. It's the bane of my existence at sometimes, but I just seeing how things went last year, and I just think that this is a better solution and a better time for us to focus, where it's not so late in the year. Just to agree with you, Trina, where it's not in February, which is almost the end. Work a whole lot. And I'm also thinking of like getting that hotel to where you guys can just stay over, like maybe having, instead of it being just all day, just maybe break it up into evenings or like in the morning. Rachel's shaking her head. She's like, no, I need to get in one day and get out. But so I have, during our program breakouts, these are the things that I want everybody's input in, and we'll get in smaller groups, and I can capture everybody's thoughts around it. So and then we're closing in on time, but I was thinking to myself that I will get them a hotel room. Rachel's like, no, girl. but I'll still try to figure it out, because some people may need to come the day before, and I still want to have that option of a hotel, just so you guys won't be getting up driving at 5:00 in the morning to make it somewhere at 8:00. You know what I mean? So Rachel is holding me to the fire. So I will circle back around on dates. I will circle back around on capacity and if it's going to be a 2-day or a 1-day thing. Let's close it out with Miss Cheese. Come on, Ashley, give it to me.
I'm just going to be counter to Rachel and say that at a university where we see a lot of students and members that want to engage in a lot of collaborative activities and conferences and events, the most successful ones are often on like a Friday, Saturday, or a Saturday, Sunday, and it's a 2-day conference specifically tailored to them and their development. And I think that would be very helpful and beneficial and could possibly be collaborative between Peace Corps and NCCC and multiple states even. And then it'd be really worth their while and it wouldn't be such a financial burden on one state or organization. And so and they sell kind of like a ticket sort of thing to help offset that cost. And if it's something we can build into our program, into our budget or something, I think that would be really beneficial to members, because a lot of mine can't attend even the February event because they have classes or their organizations are only operational Monday through Friday, and that's when they're needed. And that's the initiative they signed up for. So I've had pushback in the past from them being like, you're taking us away from what we want to do, but at the same time, we want to be doing this as well. So, for the sake of the member and their development, I really am advocating for more of a Friday, more of a weekend situation. As for the directors, I think it's wonderful to have at least one with us, but maybe every other year do a regional one. Not necessarily an every year thing. And my thing is I do think there needs to be some facilitation outside of Volunteer Tennessee and the directors, because I think sometimes we're so nose to the grindstone, we can't see the patterns and the things that appear of solutions that we may not be able to see because we can't see the forest because of the trees, so to say.
I got you. Rachel wants to argue her positive since you just argued the negative, right? She wants to be the next counselor. Come on, Rachel.
No, I don't hear me say that I don't agree that there isn't relevance and importance of that. And I agree with Ashley too, that I think our programs, so I've been a part of this for 21 years now. And when I first started, there was benefit and it seemed easier to bring members from across the state together. And we would always do it like on a Friday, Saturday. And that was more accommodating as well to program during the week, I'm sure for most of you, depending on the structure of your program. And I think that that would be helpful if it was something like that. But I feel there's been a shift across the state, across the nation, in just how AmeriCorps is being utilized across programs now, that it, even in mindset of members currently, that they're just not willing to give up any extra time anymore. And so if the times are there, I do agree that the weekend would be way much better and always have on than the week, and that there is benefit, especially for those members who are diving in full time to service. I think that they would reap a lot. And I do think 1-day conference with the option of overnight, if it's in person once a year, I think if it's jam packed, like to Trina's point, with all of Volunteer Tennessee staff present, I think could also be beneficial again. But not so many breaks and always out to eat and stuff, like really utilizing time. And I'm kind of antisocial, so I'm speaking for myself, but I think that if the content's really good, then there's a lot to talk about at dinner or at lunch as well. And so it can be beneficial, efficient, and helpful, and also fellowship.
And then, we'll be a smaller group. So we won't need to have like the breaks and the networking time all in between, because that's literally what we're there for. So it is 11 o'clock. If you guys don't mind, I would love to pick up this conversation when we get back to our breakout groups later on this afternoon, just to give your minds a rest, sort of process a little bit. And Tanya, I do agree having breaks is important for processing, which is the perfect segue to now, right? So it is 11 o'clock. We will rejoin at 1 o'clock. We will hear from NCCC, and then we'll go to Jim, and then we'll pick up this conversation down what's important to have, what's important to talk about, what's important to have here, what resources we can do come November. Settle on, and then I'll get the questions that I can send out like by a form stack or a survey monkey to confirm the times, make sure they're good with everyone. And then we will reach out individually to the programs after that. So I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to stop the recording and I will see you guys back at 1:00. Oh, be ready to take a picture. Y'all not going to have Hope kill. Like, we shouldn't say kill any days. Y'all not going to have her stalking me. So be ready to take a picture when Jim is done. We'll take a picture right then. So see you guys at 1:00. Bye, team.